Okay, so we're going to take the AP Macro 2012 exam, our practice exam. This is public on Collegeboard. So we're just going to go through each of these questions and mark what answer is the correct one and explain some reasoning why. So a country's government runs a budget deficit. So I would highlight budget deficit if you have a highlighter, but I don't think you really should use one. Underline it on the test. Runs a budget deficit given which of the following. So we know a budget deficit is when you spend more than tax revenue. So let's look for some answer that seems similar to that. The amount of new loans developing to developing countries exceeds the amount of loans paid off by developing countries. No. Never heard of that for budget deficit. Government spending exceeds tax revenues. That seems like the right answer. Debt owed to foreigners exceeds the debt owed to country citizens. Nope. Wrong. The amount borrowed exceeds the interest payment. Nope. Interest payments on the national debt exceed the spending on goods and services. No. So your answer here is going to be B for Bravo. All right. A high marginal propensity to consume implies which of the following. So we know that the spending multiplier is 1 over 1 minus MPC, right? And that's what they're talking about here is right now is the MPC, the marginal propensity to consume. So if you consume more, then that means that you're going to save less. So the MPC plus MPS always has to equal 1. So whenever the MPC becomes greater, then the MPS just by default has to get lower. So let's look at these answers. A small change in the consumption when income changes. No, because there'll be a rather large change in consumption. A high savings rate. Nope. Because as we just stated, MPS has to be pretty low. A high marginal tax rate has nothing to do with that. An equilibrium level of income near full employment. Nope. A low marginal propensity to save. Yes, that is the correct answer. The transduction, oh my God, thinking about freaking psychology. Transaction demand for money is very closely related or very closely associated with money's use as so transaction demand, that means that you're going to demand money for payments. So whenever you're using money as a method to basically pay for things, it's not going to be a store value. It's not going to be a standard unit of account. So store of value is like how money, like you can have $1 and that dollar will be worth the same dollar in a year. A standard unit of account, that's just like a standard unit of currency. Measure of value, no. Medium exchange seems pretty good. Standard of deferred payment, so it's like the idea that like, say you do a good or service and then you get paid later with that money, but it's not that. It's D. And the reason why it's D, medium of exchange, is because you're going to take more transaction demand. So that means like going into a bank and making a transaction for money whenever you need to exchange that money for like a good or a service. Unlike a market economy, a command economy uses. So a command economy is basically when the government sets all the rules and regulations for the economy. So more centralized planning and economic decision-making. So basically more decision-making is by the government than the people. That seems right so far. Consumer sovereignty to make production decisions? No, that would mean that the consumers have all the power to make these decisions. And like we just said, it's going to be mostly the government in the command economy. Its resources, command economy uses its resources more efficiently. No, not necessarily. Price signals in economic decision-making? No. The popular vote in making resource allocation decisions? No. So it's going to be A, more centralized planning and economic decision-making. The value of a country's currency will tend to appreciate appreciation, things that change things in the foreign exchange market. So right now, whenever I look at appreciation, I'm thinking an increase in the interest rates, increase in demand for the country's exports, a lower inflation rate relative to other countries, a decrease in the country's income, a tariff maybe. So appreciate. So we're looking at, I just said a demand for the country's exports are going to increase. So that's an answer. That seems to be the right one, but let's look through it. The country's money supply increases. Well, that is wrong because when the money supply increases, remember the money market. If the money supply increases, the nominal interest rate will decrease. So if the nominal interest rate decreases, people are not going to want to actually supply loans to that country and thus not demand that country's currency. The country's citizens increase their travel abroad. If the country's citizens increase their travel abroad, they're going to be demanding foreign currencies to pay for those goods and services in that country. So that means that they're going to be supplying more United States currencies, and then that currency will depreciate. The United States currency would depreciate. So both of these would cause depreciation. Sorry, it's been like a really long day. Domestic interest rates decrease. That's the same thing as C. So we know that's wrong already because we already talked about that. Tariffs on the country's imports decrease. So tariffs is a tax on imports. So whenever you tax an import, you're going to be importing less. But now if you decrease that tax on an import, you're actually going to be importing more. And imports are basically goods and services you buy from other countries. So whenever you buy something from another country, you need to use that country's currency. So that means that you're going to be demanding more of that country's currency if you're actually having a tariff decrease. Now, if there was a tariff increase, then that could be said to appreciate the currency, but it's a decrease. So answer is A. Demand for that country's exports increase in the same way that imports and exports. So basically, if other countries are demanding the United States' exports, then they'll have to also demand their currency, and that will increase the demand for the United States currency. So A. Which of the following best illustrates an improvement in a country's standard of living? So standard of living, always think real GDP per capita. So when you say real GDP per capita, just look for that answer basically. So an increase in real GDP per capita basically. Yep. So we know that's the answer, but let's look through the other ones. An increase in the nominal per capita gross domestic product. No. The reason why they want real instead of nominal, because nominal GDP per capita will actually increase with inflation. And countries like Venezuela, who have been experiencing super high inflation, maybe their nominal GDP is increasing. I really haven't checked, but their standard of living has not increased whatsoever. Price stability, sure. Maybe it shows that the country is relatively stable, but it doesn't show the standard of living. It just shows the price stability. A balanced budget, no. It just shows how the government's using their money. Does not show standard of living. An increase in the consumer price index, no. That means an increase in inflation. So that's wrong. So the answer is A. So I'll meet you on the next page. All right, so now on to number 7, hyperinflation. So hyperinflation, I think the Latin, or I'm pretty sure it's Latin. I mean, everything's Latin. Hyper means a ton. In this case. So a ton of inflation is typically caused by what? So we're looking for something that will increase something like the price level. Actually, yeah, that's only really what we're looking for. So high tax rates that discourage work effort. So high tax rates, actually, that's going to decrease aggregate demand. And when you decrease aggregate demand, that's going to decrease the price level. So that's completely opposite to what they're looking for in this question. Continuous expansions of the money supply, that's going to increase the price level a ton, so that could be a right answer. Trade surpluses that are caused by strong protectionist policies, that's not as direct as a continuous expansion of the money supply to finance government budget deficits, because so financing government budget deficits, so the government's spending more, that's going to increase G in GDP. And it's also going to increase the money supply, which is going to decrease nominal interest rates, which is going to increase investment. So these are both increasing G and I, and C actually as well, consumption, whereas this is only increasing net exports. So this is not as strong of an answer as B is. Bad harvests that lead to widespread shortages. You could say that could decrease aggregate supply and cause price level increase, but it's not as direct as B. And E. A large decline in corporate profits that leads to a decrease in production. So it's kind of the same thing with D with D basically. So corporate production's decreasing, or profits, production decreasing, short-run aggregate supply possibly decreasing, but we don't know enough. But we do know that B is certainly the correct answer here. All the following changes will shift the investment demand curve to the right, except. So investment demand. So we got to think about what's going to cause people to invest less because it's going to say except. So whenever it shifts to the right, it's going to cause people to invest more. It's just to the left, people will invest less. So we're looking at a decrease in the corporate income tax rate. So that's going to actually increase investment. So we're looking for decreased investments. So that's completely wrong. Increase in productivity. That's going to increase investment. So again, wrong. An increase in the real interest rate. Now that would do it. That would decrease investment because it's actually costing more to take out a loan. An increase in corporate profits. Nope, it's going to increase investment. And increase in real gross domestic product. Nope, it's going to increase investment. So C is the correct answer for number 8. The official unemployment rate understates the unemployment level in the economy because the official unemployment rate, so think unemployment rate is the number of unemployed individuals divided by the labor force. So remember, unemployed people are unemployed and still looking for work. If they're not looking for work, they're discouraged, they're not counted. So understates. So we're looking at discouraged workers most likely. So A says ignores the duration of unemployment. No. That we haven't talked about that. B ignores underemployed and discouraged workers. That's certainly right. C includes jobs created by the No, it doesn't include jobs created by underground economy. That is actually not in the unemployment rate because it's underground. D excludes all unemployed teenagers. No. That wouldn't really cause it to understate the unemployment rate because, I mean, we're teenagers, so, like, you know, how much can you really work? Excludes frictionally unemployed. No, it actually does include frictionally unemployed workers. So B is the correct answer for number 9. 10. If a reduction, I said 10 really quick, dude. I am so tired. If a reduction in aggregate supply, so decrease in short-run aggregate supply, is followed by an increase in aggregate demand. So let's draw this out here. This is going to be a pretty bad drawing, but whatever. So here's our short-run aggregate supply. Here's aggregate demand. So an increase in aggregate demand, so that's going to go there, and decrease in short-run aggregate supply. So this is price level. This is real GDP. On an FRQ, do not draw graphs like these. This is awful. So we know that the price level will increase, for sure. We don't know what will happen to real GDP because it doesn't tell you exactly how much each of them will increase or decrease. So this is where real GDP is. In fact, it looks like it almost stays the same. But we don't know that because, again, let's say I drew aggregate, let's say I do, give me a second here, whoopsie-doopsies. Let's say I drew aggregate demand increasing all the way over here. Then output would increase. But we certainly know the price level will increase. So that's going to be, answer is going to be D for this one. Which of the following combinations of changes in government spending and taxes is necessarily expansionary? So expansionary policy, that's going to be a decrease in taxes. I don't know why. I think this is actually touch sensitive. Interesting. A decrease in taxes or an increase in government spending. So basically, we're just looking for everything that says increase in government spending. So all these are wrong because it already says a decrease. So now we're looking for an increase and a decrease. So the answer is B. Okay, so 11 is B. And now 12. The amount of money that the public wants to hold in the form of cash will be unaffected by any change in the interest rates or price level? Nope. That's exactly what changes that. So basically, the amount of money people want to hold in the form of cash, we're looking at money demand, so in the money supply. So what would change money demand? So increase if interest rates increase? No, actually, if interest rates increase, you're going to actually demand less cash. That's why the money market graph slopes downwards, because this is actually your interest rates, and this is your quantity of money over here. That's why it slopes downwards, because as interest rates increase, the quantity of money demanded decreases. So we know that's not true. Decrease if interest rates increase. Yep, that's certainly true. Increase if the price level decreases. No, you're not going to need more money if the price level decreases because your money was actually going to go further. Decrease if the price level remains constant. That doesn't even make sense. If nothing changes, it's just going to decrease for no reason? No, not true. So it's going to be C. For an economy consisting of households and businesses only, which of the following is consistent with the circular flow of income and production? So we know that households are the providers of the factor payments, and that businesses are the providers of goods and services and demand these factor payments, and households demand the goods and services. So for 13, we're looking at A, households are the producers of goods and services and the consumers of resources. No, that would be the other way around. Firms are the producers of goods and services and the consumers of resources. B, households are users of resources and businesses are sources of saving. No. Households do not use the resources. They use the goods and services. They supply the resources. And besides, businesses are sources of saving. No, it's not even in the circular flow model. C, households are the suppliers of resources and the consumers of goods and services. That's looking pretty good. B, businesses are the users of taxes. What? And households are the sources of taxes? No. The government uses your taxes, not businesses. Businesses are the suppliers of resources. No, they don't supply the factors of production, and they don't consume goods and services. That's opposite. So we know that's C. With an increase in the real interest rate, consumption and real gross domestic product will change in which of the following ways. So an increase in real interest rates, you're going to actually decrease the amount of loans you take out because interest is basically what you pay on a loan. So once you have a loan, right, and you take it out, you get an interest rate. You probably already know this because you're this far into the video, but for those who don't know, if higher interest rates on a loan means you're going to have to pay it back more money. So if you're going to have to pay it back with more money, you're not going to do it as much because you're not going to just want to spend your money willy-nilly. So we know that consumption will decrease. Okay, so when consumption decreases, so we can cut these all out. When consumption decreases, GDP will decrease because GDP is C plus I plus G plus X minus imports. Some people call it M, or I usually do IM, but whatever, it's AP Macro. Next page. All right, so this one's kind of short. According to the short-run Phillips curve, lower inflation rates are associated with, so the short-run Phillips curve, let me just draw something that looks like that. So we have unemployment, and then inflation, and then here's your short-run Phillips curve. So lower inflation rates, when inflation goes lower, unemployment increases. So higher unemployment rates is what we're looking for. So that's A, exactly. Phillips curve has nothing to do with government spending. Again, nothing to do with government spending, nothing to do with labor force participation rates. It only has to do with the unemployment rate. Those are different rates. Which of the following will lead to a decrease in the nation's money supply? So decrease the money supply, we're looking at open market operations, sell bonds, we're looking at increase the discount rate, increase the reserve ratio, increase the federal funds rate. So for 16, decrease in the income tax, nope. Decrease in the discount rate, that's going to increase the money supply. Open market purchase, that's going to increase the money supply. Increase in the reserve requirement, bingo, that's what we said. And increase in the government expenditures has nothing to do with the money supply. So the answer is D. 17, an increase in which of the following would cause the aggregate demand curve to shift to the left? Increase in which of the following? So that's going to be a shift to the left is a decrease in aggregate demand. So whenever you increase something, it's going to decrease aggregate demand. So increase in consumer optimism. No, it's going to increase C, which is going to increase aggregate demand. Remember, aggregate demand is essentially real GDP, and real GDP is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Increase in population, not necessarily going to increase or decrease aggregate demand. In fact, it might actually increase it eventually once those people are working and consuming. Cost of resources, no, that's going to decrease short-run aggregate supply, not aggregate demand. That's a trigger. That's a trigger. Income taxes, yes. An increase in income taxes going to decrease consumption because because it's going to decrease your disposable income. Remember, disposable income is your income minus taxes plus government transfer payments. So if you have a larger thing to subtract from taxes from your income, then that's going to decrease your consumption. So we know that D is the right answer. Net exports, increase in net exports, no, it's going to increase GDP and increase aggregate demand. Which of the following changes in the supply and demand for a good will definitely result in a decrease in both the equilibrium price and quantity of the good? So whenever something both decreases or both increases, we know that demand is going to either increase or decrease. So for 18, we're looking at no change in supply because that could screw us up, and a decrease in demand. The reason being, so we have price, we have quantity, here's demand. So whenever the demand curve shifts, so let's say this is our first equilibrium, demand curve shifts to the left, both the equilibrium price and quantity will always decrease. Now, if there is actually a supply curve here, and the supply curve like shifted, let's say to the left, we don't know exactly. So the price could remain the same, but quantity will decrease. If the supply curve shifts to the right, the price will decrease, but quantity, again, we don't know. So that's just how it is. Okay, so this is looking like a tricky one here. So number 19, bank balance sheet. Based on the balance sheets above for the 3 different banks, which of the following is true if the reserve requirement is 10%? So we're looking at Bank A first. So if the reserve requirement is 10%, the answer A says Bank A has no excess reserves. Well, if the reserve requirement is 10% of 5,000, if we just do divide 5,000 by 10, all right, so 5,000 divided by 10, have to hold 500. That's your required reserves. 500. So we know that there is actually excess reserves in Bank A because this is their actual reserves are 1,000. So they have $500 of excess reserves in there. So that's incorrect. Bank B has no excess reserves. So let's do the same thing. So 10% of 600, that's going to be 60. Actual reserves 100. So no, they have $40 more than they need. So they do have excess reserves. Answer C says Bank B can increase its loans by $500. So we said it was 60 was the reserve requirement, increase its loan by $500. No, because if you take 60 over here, if you actually, like we said, we have excess reserves of 40 because it really all you need is 60. Excess reserves of 40. Let's say you increase those loans by $40. You can't increase their loans by 500, so that's incorrect. And we just said you can increase its loans by 40, so we know D is correct. And then let's go for E. Bank C has excess reserves. No, it does not. Reserve requirement is 10%, so they're required to hold $10. They have that $10, and they're loaning out everything else, so we know it's D is the correct answer. Which of the following will lead to a decrease in inflationary expectations? So we're looking for something that will decrease the price level. The reason why I cut there is I had a technical issue, so sorry about that. So decrease the price level, so decrease aggregate demand or increase aggregate supply. Decrease in the marginal propensity to save. No, that's actually going to increase aggregate demand because it's going to increase consumption. Decrease in imports. No, that's going to increase aggregate demand because it's going to increase net exports. Decrease in the money supply. Yes, that'll decrease, since a decrease in the money supply will cause an increase in the real or nominal interest rates rather, which will decrease investment and decrease aggregate demand. An increase in the government budget deficit. No, that means that the government is spending more. So that means that G could be increasing. An increase in the price of raw materials. No, it's going to decrease short and aggregate supply and increase the price level. So we know that the answer to 20 is C. With an upward sloping short-run aggregate supply curve, an increase in government expenditure will most likely. So an increase in G is going to increase real GDP and increase aggregate demand. So it's going to cause aggregate demand to increase. So it's not going to reduce the price level because when aggregate demand increases, the price level increases. It's not going to reduce the level of nominal gross domestic product because GDP will increase with aggregate demand increasing. It will increase the real gross domestic product because we just said that. Shift the short-run aggregate supply curve to the right? No. Shift both the aggregate demand and long-run aggregate supply curve to the left? No. Because as we just said, aggregate demand would actually increase. So we know the answer there is C for 21. Next page. All right. Which of the following are the most likely short-run effects of an increase in government expenditures? So that's going to increase aggregate demand. This is basically the same question as 21. So an increase in aggregate demand is going to increase GDP. In macroeconomics, GDP is correlated with unemployment. So whenever GDP increases, unemployment decreases. Or sorry, GDP is correlated with, I guess you could say it's correlated with unemployment, but basically GDP and employment go hand in hand. So whenever GDP increases, employment increases. Whenever GDP decreases, employment decreases. Whenever GDP increases, unemployment decreases, and vice versa. So we're looking for something that's going to say an increase in government expenditures will decrease the unemployment rate. So we know A and B are wrong. And we know that's wrong. Increase in expenditures is going to increase aggregate demand, so it's going to increase the price level. So we know that inflation is going to increase, so it has to be C. Okay? Okay. So now we're on to 23. In the short run, an expansionary monetary policy would most likely result in which of the following changes to the price level and real GDP. So we're in the short run. So expansionary monetary policy, you're going to increase the money supply. That's going to decrease nominal interest rates, and that's going to increase investment and potentially consumption. More so investment than consumption, but either way, it's going to increase aggregate demand. So we're looking for something that says an increase in the price level and an increase in real GDP. So let's see what that says. So this is the right one. A reduction in inflation can best be achieved by which of the following combinations of fiscal and monetary policy. So reduction in inflation, that means decrease aggregate demand. So basically what they're asking for you is to show them that you know two contractionary policies. So, fiscal policy, you're going to want to increase taxes. So, decrease is already down. You're either going to want to increase taxes or decrease government spending. So, increase government spending is out. So, now we look at increased government spending, increase taxes, it's going to decrease aggregate demand. Sell government bonds, it's going to decrease the money supply, increase nominal interest rates, and decrease investment. So, it's going to decrease aggregate demand. So, we got A for 24. Decrease government spending, that will decrease aggregate demand, but lower discount rate, that will actually increase the money supply and increase aggregate demand. The money supply is correlated with aggregate demand, so if you increase the money supply, it's going to increase aggregate demand, by the way. Which of the following is likely to occur following the depreciation of the United States dollar? Ooh, foreign exchange. Interesting. So depreciation, that means that the United States currency is relatively cheaper than other currencies. So let's say the US dollar is $1 for every euro, and now a euro is worth $2. So that means that the euro can buy more of the United States currency. So whenever it can buy more of the United States currency, they're actually going to buy more United States goods. So we're already looking at imports will increase. Exports will increase. United States imports will not increase because other foreigner goods will be relatively more expensive because those goods will have a higher basically price to pay in terms of currency because the United States currency has depreciated. Demand for the United States dollar will decrease. No, because this is following the depreciation, so already demand is already decreased or supply is increased, so that's not necessarily true. What else is here? Demand for foreign currencies will increase. No, again, is following the depreciation, so that's already happened. United States goods will become more expensive in foreign markets. No, because they'll actually become less expensive because they have a depreciated dollar. The table below shows the production alternatives for country A and country B for producing computers and cars with equal amounts of resources that are fully and efficiently employed. So we're looking at a production possibility graph, basically, or thing. Which of the following is true according to the data in the table? So country A can either make 24 computers or 12 cars. Country B can either make 45 computers or 15 cars. So country A, for every one computer, they give up 1/2 of a car. Okay, because you have 24 here and 12. So if you divide 24 by 24, you get 1. Divide 12 by 24, you get 1/2. Country B, for one computer, so divide both sides by 45. 45 over 45 is 1. 15 over 45 is going to be 1 over what, like 1 over 4? No, actually 1 over 5, right? No, that's right? 15, no, 1 over 3. I thought 3 first. Okay, whatever. Because, 15 times 2, 30, and then add another one. Sorry, it's been a long day. I drove for like 3 hours today, so whatever. All right. So by this, comparative advantage, basically you want the lower comparative advantage. So B has a comparative advantage in computers. So we're looking for something that says that B has a comparative advantage in computers. So it's not this one. It could be B here. for 26. So country B has an absolute advantage. So absolute advantage just means you can produce more. So that's true. And a comparative advantage in the production of computers. That's true. Country B should import computers? No, they should export computers because that's a comparative advantage. So that's wrong. Country B has an absolute advantage in the production of both goods and will not need to trade. Nope, always need to trade. Neither country can benefit from trade. That's always going to be the wrong answer whenever you see it. So always cross the one out. Next page. And then we're done. Okay, which of the following individuals is considered officially unemployed? So again, we're talking about the unemployment rate. So we're talking about anything that's basically not a discouraged worker. So you have to be actively applying for jobs. So, Chris, who's not worked for more than 3 years, given up. Nope, wrong. If it says given up, automatically not employed, or not in the labor force. So it's not considered unemployed because you're not even in the labor force. Is waiting until graduation before looking for a job? No, you're not applying for a job, so you're not in the labor force. Pat, who recently left a job to look for a different job in another town. That's frictional unemployment, so that's probably counted. Leslie, who retired. No, retirees are not counted. Working 20 hours per week and seeking full-time employment. No. Partially employed people are employed, in AP Macro at least. So C is the correct answer for 27. An increase in net investment, that's going to increase short-run aggregate supply or increase long-run aggregate supply, so just keep that in mind. Leads to faster economic growth because capital per worker and output per worker will change in the following ways. So capital per worker will increase because you invest in those workers more. So we know that it's going to be actually an increase in both because whenever capital per worker increases, that means that output per worker will also increase. A country's economy is operating below the full employment level of output, so you have a recessionary gap. That's what that means. At a very low inflation rate, that's even further a recessionary gap. The central bank of the country is most likely to... So the central bank is most likely to pursue an expansionary policy, but now we need to look at the reasons why. Pursue an expansionary policy because it's required to do so by law? No, it's not. Pursue an expansionary policy because it's required to do so by law? No, it's not. Lower the discount rate and buy bonds? Yep, that's probably true to generate an increase in output. Lower the reserve ratio and sell bonds? Nope. Sell bonds will actually decrease the money supply. That'll be contractionary policy. Raise the discount rate? No, that's contractionary policy. So C, what they're basically asking here is for you to identify two expansionary policies. So lower the discount rates one, buy bonds is the other. So you just got to simplify these questions whenever you take the test. Assume that an economy is currently in long-run equilibrium and the short-run aggregate supply curve is upward sloping. An adverse supply shock, such as a drought. So adverse supply shock, that's negative supply shock. That's also called stagflation. Stagflation is a term you probably should know. Actually, you need to know. It's a decrease in short-run aggregate supply, which will increase the price level and decrease output. So we're looking for something that has to do with that. So a decrease in the price level, no, it's going to increase the price level, so automatically wrong. Decrease in the price level, nope, automatically wrong. Increase in the price level, could be right. Increase in the nominal wage, no. When the price level increases, the nominal wage actually doesn't necessarily need to increase because remember, short-run aggregate supply, upward sloping, you're assuming sticky wages. So that will not necessarily increase the nominal wage yet. This Keynesian economics. An increase in the price level and an increase in the real wage, no. No. Whenever the short-run aggregate supply decreases, that's going to actually increase the price level and decrease the real wage. So we've gotten to that answer, and that answer is E. This is going to be the last question here, 31, and then I'll make another video. If country alpha has been experiencing a higher inflation rate than country beta, so from that we can already say a higher inflation rate, that's actually going to depreciate your currency. So that means that alpha's currency has depreciated, beta's currency has appreciated. Which of the following is true? Alpha's currency will have appreciated. No, we already said that's wrong, so that's wrong. Alpha's currency will have depreciated. Yes, we said that's right, so that's right. Alpha's currency will have Alpha will have lower nominal interest rates. No, that's not necessarily true. Alpha will have slower growth. No, that's not necessarily true for the money supply. Alpha's economy will have grown faster rate than beta's. No, that's not necessarily true. So B is the correct answer. So that's half of the 2012 practice public exam. Took around, I want to say 30 minutes. So the test actually, whenever you take it, it's going to be 70 minutes for 60 questions. And it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I haven't actually taken it yet. I'm actually taking the class right now, but I'm reviewing both for my benefit and your benefit And also, I just like macro a lot. So yeah, we got through all the answers. You can find this on Collegeboard. So I'll see you in the next video, I guess. I don't know. Peace out, my dude.